Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel CCUK Resin, and this is going to be stage one of my Bleeding Hearts collaboration make, and it's going to be interesting. Hope it's going to work. I'm going to be mixing resin, eco-pour and a few other things and seeing what we're getting, but I'm not going to tell you what it's going to look like. I'm not even going to tell you the plan because I don't know it. I'm just going to wing it as I go. So I know there has to be some hearts in there, and I'm thinking a couple of skulls will be kind of creepy, which will be quite nice. I've got some glitter, I've got some other things. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is just separate a bit of this resin. I've mixed up 5 ounces of the Apex resin, the high gloss. If you want any of that, get over to apexresin.co.uk and use my discount code CCUK to get yourself some money off. So I feel unprepared, but here we go. So the first thing I'm going to do is obviously fill up these hearts, and these aren't going to stay looking like this, is all I'll say at this point. So I'm going to pour some of my resin into this cup, and I do want them to be red for now. So I'm going to add a couple of drops of sweet cherry alcohol ink. I think just a couple. Now I've got this mold as well, which is a beautiful crystal heart mold from Into Resin. If you want anything from there, get over there, use my discount code CCUK and you can get some money off there. But that is stunning. So I want to be able to use that in some ways in this make. And I've got an idea. So that is just 2 drops of this octopus ink. And I think that's all I'll need. But I'm going to weigh it up by mixing the colour and finding out. So this is just that 2 drops, which should give us a really rich, dark but still transparent red. Look at that, beautiful. And I'm going to do a lighter version of this for in the crystal mold, but this at the minute is just going to be for these. Now I am going to add stuff to it. I'm going to add a tiny bit of this black chameleon glitter, not too much but just enough so that hopefully we'll see some of it coming through. And I'm going to add some black and blue midnight sapphire rocks, which I got from Create and Bloom, to that mixture. Again, not too many, but I don't want this to be just pure red. I want it to have almost a bit of a gothic theme, and there'll be a bit of a broken heart theme. So sorry guys, but some of us are single, and I thought it'd be appropriate. So this is step 1. So let's just mix this together and see what it feels like. Make sure it feels the way you want it to feel. I'm pretty happy with this as a mixture now for these hearts. Then I've got to think about these skulls. Then I've got to think about the big crystal skull. So let's see if I've got enough first of all to just fill these. Beautiful. I'm loving that effect already. I'm hoping, I think I'm going to have to mix up another couple of cups of this because I do want to fill these. I want at least the 9 for the piece, but I like the consistency of that. So let's fill these 3 first. So I think that's about 1.5 ounces to fill these 3. And I want them to be full, even though we're going to destroy them in the next stage, which sounds a little bit cruel, but hey, hopefully it'll all add to this piece when all is said and done. And there's going to be a few stages to this, so I do apologise if the video is a little bit longer than normal. Hopefully the result will make it worth it. So we've got 4 out of 1 pot so far. There we go. Happy that they are pretty much full. And I like that look so far. Now the next thing I'm going to think about is this crystal heart. Now I want this to remain pretty much see-through with just a hint of red. So I'm going to do the same again. One of these cups, because I only want it about half full. And you'll see why in the next step. And for this one, I'm going to add a different red because that's a little bit purple. So I'm going to add some Sagilite, which I think is quite a nice red from Let's Resin. And I want this to stay reasonably red. So I think that'll do. Don't want it to be too concentrated either. So that's why I only put a few drops in there, but that should be enough to just tint it. And all I'm going to do is swirl it like this. Not mix it properly and just leave it almost smoky like that. That's now going to go in here up to there. I think I'm happy with that based on what I'm going to do in the next stage. I've got to remember I used 2 drops of the Sagilite because I'm going to need to remember that for the next stage. It's always getting so complex already. But I think that is about perfect. So now I'm going to mix up some more for these hearts. And again, I'm going to mix and match now. And I didn't mean to fill these, but I'm going to have some like this. And then I'm going to have some with a slightly different effect. So 1 drop of that, and then 2 drops of the Sagittite. Where's it gone? Just to give us a little bit of a different colour. Never be afraid to mix your inks or your colourings and see what you get. And then I'm going to add some more of this glitter because I do like that effect. And as you can see, I don't measure things out perfectly. I go by feel. And if it feels right, then that's what I do. And then let's get some more of these Midnight Sapphire rocks in here as well. Probably should use the scoop for those, it'd be a bit easier. And then I've got to remember I've got these little skulls to fill as well. Because I want at least one of them, and I think I only want one. We'll see in a minute. 2 scoops of these in again. And then I'm going to add a bit of bling to these ones as well with a little bit of gold. And for that, I've got some gold fusion from Laura's Art Corner. I'm just going to add a sprinkle. Now, they will definitely sink. But I just want to add a little touch of gold to this next set of hearts. And I'm happy with that. Not too much, but again, I think it'll just give them a slightly different effect. So now I'm going to mix that. And again, I'm just going by feel. If it feels right, it'll be good enough to pour. And again, just mixing it around, making sure the inks are mixed so it's not fully transparent. And these are going to be quite dark hearts. Oh dear. Here we go. So again, very different look with these, just because of that gold. I'm going to try and not fill these either. Well, not all the way anyway. Because I'm going to try something different with these on the back. And it might work, it might not. I don't know. Not tried it before. But if ever there's a time to try something new, it's in a collaboration when everybody can watch and it can all go wrong, is what I thought. So this is pretty straightforward, this bit. And what I might do is I have got a tiny bit left of this. I'm tempted to pour it in there, but I'm not going to because I want that semi-transparent. So that is that. Now I'm going to get another cup. I'm just going to put a tiny bit of resin in there. Then I've got some black Pearl Dry mica powder. This is how dark we're going in this make, guys. And I think this is going to be more of a grey graphite colour rather than black, but it should work all the same. So I'm just going to mix that round, and it's more of a silvery black than a pure black, but that's okay. I think it will still work. So now what I'm going to do is very carefully, he says, just try and get a few little lines of this going through these hearts. And once that flow starts, I'm going to struggle to stop it. So I'm just going to jump across like this on all of them until I've got some charcoal lines in them all. Some will have more than others, but I don't think it'll matter in the end result because I think they're all going to move around and do their own things anyway. There we go. Happy with that. And now I've got a tiny bit of this resin left. So I might as well make sure that these ones are full just by pouring a drip into the center of each. And that's going to help push out that graphite. And we'll see if we get a different effect. We might not. I don't know at this point. This is all trial and error. But I just thought it'd be a fun way to try something new. And if it works, you never know. I might do it again. There we go. I'm pretty happy that they're full enough. But again, there's a couple where I think I can fit a tiny bit more in. Let's just go ahead and fill them. Because we are be destroying these at the end, guys. Sorry. If they come out really pretty, I might change my mind, but I don't think I'm going to. Right, now for these skulls, I've still got, I hope, enough resin left. So let's create a mix for those as well. And I want these to be really dark. I still want them to have an element of red, but I want them to be more black. So I am going to put in all of that charcoal that's left, he says. And then this is going to be a real mix of, hopefully, this dark red. I'm going to put 1, 2, 3, 4 reds in there, which is going to make it quite dark. Then I'm going to mix in what's left of this charcoal, all going straight into that resin. And I'm hoping to have enough. And I'm hoping that this just darkens it up an extra level. There we go. Then I'm going to add some more of this glitter, but I'm going to go in quite heavy this time, because I do want this to show through in these skulls. And then I'm going to decide which one I'm going to use, which is going to be quite interesting as well. And I think I'm happy with that as a mix. I'll find out in a minute. In fact, no, I'm not. I want to add some more of these rocks as well, these Midnight Sapphire rocks. And again, I'm going to add quite a few of these because I think they'll actually help with the shape of the skull as well. Happy with that. And that should definitely give us enough, I think, to just fill these 2 skulls. And one of these skulls I know has got a little bit of orange on him from the last time I used him. And I've left it on because I think it'd look quite cool. So here we go. This is that mixing it together, mixing it all around. We've got a really dark red, blacky colour. There we go. And that I'm going to use to try and fill these tiny skull molds. And then we're going to cure these before we go on to the next stage. In we go. I'm doing it slowly, so hopefully we shouldn't get any air bubbles or anything like that. It's quite a heavy mixture though, so we should be okay. And then the idea is once this is, in fact, I'm not telling you, you're going to have to wait. Follow the video if you want to see what my crazy mind's up to. But there should be enough here to fill these two, which is good. I'm going to decide which one I'm going to use. This one's deliberately got some orange left in it as well. To see if I get any patinations or not. And we can decide once they're cured. Beautiful. And I've still got a tiny bit of this left, so I don't want to waste it, guys. Have I got something at the side of me? I've still got a tiny bit of resin in there as well. There's got to be a tiny mold somewhere. Well, I can't see one. Oh, this will do. A little flower. That will work. So let's pour the rest of that in there. Come on. I don't think I've used this mold very often, actually. So let's really scrape it. In fact, I've got my drip mold at the side. I should have just put it in there, but hey-ho. We're doing this now. And at least it will give me an idea of what the finished colour will look like in the finished piece, hopefully. But as I say, I wanted it to be something special for this collab, just because I know Jules really well. Got to know her through this amazing community. And I wanted this piece to hopefully be something that wasn't just a standard pour. And even a standard pour, don't get me wrong, a standard pour is beautiful in resin. But I wanted it to be a little bit more special. And hopefully I can create that. We will see. Beauty of resin is you can do whatever you want with it. It's just a case of thinking how to do it. And they don't always work. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they don't. But that is the nature of resin art. So I've got a tiny bit more clear left in here as well. Might as well fill this up. We'll see what this looks like at the end. Hopefully it'll look cool. It's almost like a fake box, this. I think it's an Resin one that I got in their mystery molds pack. I'm still intrigued to see what it will look like, especially with all these things added. There we go. All right, stage one done. I need to put the curing machine on now for half an hour. Well, not for half an hour, sorry, for 2 hours. So that we fully cure these pieces. Then we move on to the next stage. And then there should be a third and final stage, hopefully. So let's just mix that colour around that clear resin. Beautiful. And I might even use this in the end piece if it turns out well. So I'm going to put the lid on. We'll see you all again in about 2 hours. And here we go, guys. And the machine's gone off, so I'm guessing these are going to be cured. Let's test it with this piece first of all. Still a little bit warm, actually. So there we go. That is what the end looks going to be. I think of those skulls, and I really like that. So hopefully we're going to have a cool piece. And I'm not sure if I'm going to incorporate that or not yet. I just wanted to see what these look like. So let's demold these hearts. And they're pretty cool. And they should all look fairly similar. Just hearts with a bit of darkness going through. So let's get them all out. And then I've got some more resin in so we can go on to the next stage. But I think they're really cool. Just from this little hearts mold. So they're the first four. And then these are the ones with the little bit of gold in as well. But they're not going to stay looking like hearts, guys. I just thought, with it being a Valentine's Day collaboration, let's start off with some lovely little hearts. So happy with those. Even the ones with the gold, it turned out really cool. Just the different colours in there. And I think these are going to look very, very cool in the end piece. But we are going to need some more of these, I think. Now let's have a look at these skulls and see what they've turned out like. Fun demolding these. They almost just pop out. Here we go. Look at that little guy. You can still see the detail in him. Loving it. So that's one. And then this one might have a couple of little bits of orange on him. Hopefully. So we've got something to compare. And they do. They almost just pop out once you get them dislodged. There we go. See? Here he comes. And again, there's that guy. You can just see that little tiny bit of orange there. Still really cool. Now, the next question I've got is, will they both fit? I think they will. And if they do slightly come out, that will still look really cool, I think. Yeah, with those. So now, before I can pour any more resin into here, I want to fix these in. And the problem's going to be is I don't want them flat, and I also don't want too much of that bit visible. So I want them almost at a bit of an angle like that. So the only way I thought of doing this is going to be with some UV resin. So I'm going to get gloved up, going to get the resin well out of the debubbler, then we're going to move on to the next stage. So here we go, guys, and this is probably going to be the finicky bit, and I don't even know if it's going to work, and I'll give you guys a bit of a clue at this point. There's going to be a big mold involved in this as well. But hopefully it will. I'm going to use some UV resin. Now, the problem I've got is these are almost black. So I'm worried that even if I get it just where I want, and I'm going to try one at a time, I just want a dot of this UV resin in there. Then I want to try and fix this at a bit of an angle. Here goes nothing. Don't want it perfectly flat. I want it at an angle like that. Come on. And they are going to protrude a little bit out of this heart. I could have done it a bit deeper. But actually, I think the fact that they're going to stick out a little bit is going to really add to the effect. And I'm going to put them both in. I wasn't going to, but I've changed my mind slightly. And I am going to. Improvisation, I think they call it. So again, just a little dot of the UV. And then let's have this guy at a bit of an angle facing the other way. And hopefully, this is just going to be enough to just secure it whilst I pour resin around it, hopefully. I'm going to try and get it through the mold as well. This one's proving to be a little bit more difficult. Might need a tiny bit more UV resin in there, I think. And the other thing is, I don't want to dislodge the other one. I want a decent amount in there. Shouldn't matter in the end piece because you shouldn't be able to see it once it's all cured. And it worked on the first one. So hopefully it'll work on this one as well. Come on. Move my thumb and then just try and cure it there as well. So there we go. We've got those two little skulls in this heart mold. Just making sure all that UV resin is cured. But they're now pretty secure. I'm pretty happy with that. Not perfectly central, but I don't think they were ever going to be. Now all I'm going to do is get the resin. I think that's going to be the debubbler. It is. Now we're going to fill this up. And I think we're going to make a few more hearts as well. So let's move these out of the way for now. We will need them again. And I just, without throwing them all over the place, I want to see roughly how much area they're going to cover. Because that will give me an indication of how many I'm going to need. And don't worry, I'm going to clean this mold first. So these will give me roughly one layer if I want it, like that. Then that's going to be in the center anyway. So we would need quite a few of these to fill this, but I'm not planning to completely fill it. So I'm going to do another row of those, I think, as well as filling up this heart. So here we go. Moment of truth. All right, let's get some more resin. Same high gloss that I used last time. And what I'm going to do is the same as last time, just for the heart, is just get a little cup with 2 drops. So it's roughly going to be the same color, and I'm not going to mix it thoroughly. I think it was this one I used. No, it wasn't. It was the Sagittite, I think. Oh, I can't remember now. Do not do resin in the middle of the night. Right, 1, 2. That is 2 of that Sagittite, and hopefully it was the same color. We'll find out in a minute. And then this time, I'm just going to use a toothpick, again, just to wisp the color through. I don't want this thoroughly mixed. I do want it to remain almost smoky in effect. And that's where a cocktail stick really comes into play. So here we go. I don't know if this is going to be enough, but we'll find out. So I'm just going to fill around these skulls now. Doesn't matter if I get a bit over them. And actually, I think it will help the effect a little bit if I just fill them in anyway. And hopefully we'll still see through to those details after. A little bit short, so I need a little bit more. Right, so let's get some more then. I think one more of these should certainly be enough, maybe even half. So let's try half first. Just one more drop of ink. I really hope this works, guys. It's a lot of effort if it doesn't. What do you think? Do you think it's going to work or not? Again, just wisping it through almost with my cocktail stick, not concentrating on it mixing. I just want almost that smoky effect. So here we go. Now let's fill her up all the way to the top. There we go. I think that is pretty full. but I do want to make sure it is all the way. And that's almost doming now. So that is pretty perfect. And I can see a tiny bubble just on his chin. I'm going to try and dislodge it with the toothpick. And again, going to go in these eyes, just try and dislodge them, and the nose. That's where the bubbles are likely to be, on both sides, and then just go around them as well to dislodge any that might want to attach. And hopefully that'll dislodge them all. Pretty happy with how this guy's looking so far. There's another one. Again, just trying to dislodge them if I can see any. But I think that's pretty cool. So now I'm just going to mix up some sort of mix to fill these up with. And I'm going to go back to the darker one now. So it's the octopus ink. Don't know how much I've put in there, but hopefully it'll be enough. Then I want some glitter. And I quite like that gold in there. So I'm going to add some of that gold again. Then I'm going to cure these overnight. And then tomorrow I can come back and hopefully get the next stage finished. And in fact, I'm going to put some of that Sinker White. And I'm going to use the 100% Sinker White on this. And just put a few drops in each. And hopefully this will give us a slightly blobby effect. Is the plan. Just to give us some differentiation in these hearts. And it'll be interesting to see how the Petri cut drips through these rocks as well. And the glitters and everything else that's in there. Beautiful. Now I'm going to let this cure. And I've slightly overfilled it. You can see it's coming over the edge, but I can sort that out tomorrow. Pretty happy with that. I'll let these cure overnight. And then we're going to come back tomorrow for stage 3, where we're hopefully going to start with the Eco Pour. See you in a sec. Here we go, guys. And now we're on to the next stage, which is making some skulls. And who doesn't like making skulls? It's so fun. And I don't think I've ever gone wrong with a skull. So I'm just going to play with this. So the first thing I've done is I've got some Candy Apple Blossom Red, which I've used before to make almost a traumatic head impact effect. And all I've done is literally got a scoop of this and put it in the base of the skull. Now we're going to dirty pour these skulls as well. So I'm just going to get a tiny bit like that and then drop it in. And the same with this one. And hopefully it'll look like these skulls have just been in some form of collision. There we go. Just move it around a touch. And there we go. I'm happy with that because it's all going to disperse anyway when I do the next bit. So there's the red. And hopefully that's just going to, as I say, create that effect. Now for the next bit, I'm just going to add a tiny bit of clear in there as well in each one. So now, again, I'm not expecting this to stay clear when I pour. I'm going to try and do these pretty much the same if I can, like that. And then I'm going to pour some in here. I don't know if this is going to work, but I'm just having fun with these skulls. And I've got 3 dirty cups. Well, they're not dirty cups, but they're used cups at the side of me, which I'm going to pour now. In fact, I should only really need 2. I do want a little bit of gold, I think, a little bit of black, and a little bit of spider silk. In we go. It's going to be the main colour, as you can tell. Different amounts going in. I don't even know if I've got enough here to fill these skulls. I'm hoping I have. But if not, I can always come back and redo it and mix up a little bit more. So here we go. I've got the little cup. Now with this, I just had it at the side of me and I thought, you know what? Let's have some chameleon and some chrome powders going through it as well, just to see what effect we get. So I'm just going to put a scoop of the chrome powder in there, like so, and a scoop of the chameleon powder. And as I say, I've never done these skulls in this way before, so it might be genius and it might be horrific. I don't know yet. So let's add a bit of this chameleon as well. In you go. Beautiful. And then I'm going to mix that up. And I want these skulls to be special. I do want them to look really cool. Whether they will or not is another matter. I'm just going to break this in 2 so I can use it with another mix as well. But this is going to be the blue, which is the chrome and the chameleon. Just mixing it through, ready for that dirty pour. And I do want to make sure it's all thoroughly mixed. And look at that for a colour. Beautiful. And you should probably use a deep pour resin for this, guys. But you all know me by now. I don't like to do what I'm supposed to do. So I've got some heavy marble gold as well, which I'm going to be using. And I'm just going to put some of that in this end one. Again, quite heat. And I think this is more of a floating gold. But again, it'd be interesting to see what it looks like in a skull. So that's my gold. And I'm just going to mix that around, making sure that there's none of that powder left. And we've just got a lovely, beautiful, liquidy gold. Always scrape your sides as well, making sure you've not missed any of that powder, because otherwise it will affect your end result, because it'll float to the top and you'll get a little powder blast. Here we go. So just mixing it around. Beautiful, rich, dark gold color. So that's the gold. Now I do want some black. And I'm going to add some glitter to the black, just so we've got that theme going through. So in with the black glitter. And then I'm just going to use some black pigment paste, which is this resin dye paste that I always use for my black, just because I bought it absolutely ages ago, and I've still got loads left. Goes a long way. And these are going to be quite dark, gothic-y skulls, which is what I want for this piece. So I'm just going to mix that around now, making sure the glitter's all mixed in and that black. Beautiful. So that is that colour. And don't forget, we are going to intermix all of these, guys. And then next, I'm going to use a spider silk, which is kind of a metallic-y, silvery white colour. And it always goes like this, but then you have to just remix it through to give you that colour. And I think it's the metallics in it that makes it do that. But it's a beautiful colour. And I'm going to do this with a combination of white, because I think that's too silver for me. But it's almost like a metallic silvery colour. So whatever's left on my stick will do. And then I'm going to just add a little bit of white to it, or some iridescent powder, depending on what I've got at the side of me. Have I got my iridescent powder? No, I haven't. Right, I'm going to grab some white. Give me 1 second. In fact, I've changed my mind. I've got a metallic cream, which I think will look really cool mixed in with this colour. So let's mix that spider silk around. And then, look at that. Beautiful. It is almost like silver. Gorgeous colour. And then I'm going to get some of this creamy metallic. And hopefully it's not going to overtake, but get it off my stick. And then this is going to be the main colour in the skull. Well, these skulls, should I say. And then it's just going to be about how I intermix these in that dirty pour. What's hopefully going to create a cool effect for these skulls. I don't know at this point. Maybe I've got a bit too far, guys. Maybe. So the majority I've got is going to be this white and black. And I'm going to dirty pour these. So now the thing I love about a dirty pour, you never know what it's going to turn out like. So let's add about half of the blue first. Then I'm going to add quite a lot of the white. Then I think I'm going to go in with the gold, then the black. And we are going to see, hopefully we're going to get some really special skulls, is what I hope. Rest of that blue. And I can always scrape the cups at the end. And some white, then some black, then some gold, then some white. In fact, I want white to be the starting colour as well, I think. So let's pour the rest of the black in, then the blue, if there's any left, and then the rest of the white. And this will be our pouring cup, essentially. But what I am going to do is just pour a drop of that white in first. So I know that hopefully that'll feature on top of the red. Don't know at this point. And as I say, normally I would recommend you use a deep pour, but I always push the boundaries a little bit. Look at that for a pouring cup. This is going to be crazy. And in we go. No particular order. I'm just going to be mixing it around as we go and hoping that we get a cool effect. In fact, I'm going to do this up until the eye socket, and then I'm going to go one step further as well, because it is a bleeding hearts Valentine. I'm going to add just a couple of drops around of this alcohol ink as well. Give us a blood effect. And again, this should hopefully give us another interesting element to look at when these skulls are done. Don't know. I think they're going to be quite dark, to be honest. I think that white and that spider silk is completely lost. But you know what? That's the fun of resin for me. It's just having a play and seeing what effects we get. And I do think these are going to be very cool. And I don't think I'm going to have quite enough resin. So I'm going to have to mix up a tiny bit more. But let's get the rest of what we've got mixed in. And then I'm just going to mix up with whatever colour I've got left in there. And these other colours. I'm going to use these, and then I'm just going to pour it in the centre. So hopefully it'll push those colours out that we've already mixed. And I'm estimating, looking at them, we do need quite a bit, actually. I think we need about another 300 ml. So I'm going to eyeball it. And you shouldn't do this, guys. You should always measure properly. But I think I've got to the point now where I'm usually pretty good with eyeballing. Right, that and that again. There we go. I think that is perfect. Then I'm just going to mix that round. And I could put it through the debubbler, but I don't think I'm going to need to for this. This is going to make a really weird colour once it's mixed. Just a metallic-y goldness, I think. Look at this. It's like a bronze. So again, just mixing it around for 3 or 4 minutes until I'm happy that it's all mixed, because you still want to make sure your resin's mixed, even if you're just adding. And then I think what I'm going to do, look at that. They're looking stunning. Is just pour the rest of these colours before I do this. And then we're going to put them in the curing machine. So these will hopefully be ready in 2 hours. Then I can come back and we can go on to the next stage. So whatever I've got left in these, I'm just going to wipe my sticks. Always reuse your sticks as well, guys. So first colour, that blue one in there. Beautiful. Then I'm going to go in with the black. Save the gold till the end, I think. And it goes. And this is just going to mean when I'm pouring the rest of this, hopefully it's going to carry on pushing these colours out and giving us a really cool effect. You never know until you're done. And even then, you still look at it for days to decide whether you're happy with it. Right, that's those. Now I'm going to put a little tiny speck of the gold, not all of it at this point. Just going through the centre bit on both. And this is quite a heavy gold, guys. I'm expecting some of it to sink because it is a sinker as well as a floater, this one. Very strange. So now I'm just going to torch any excess bubbles off this because we have just mixed it. And then I'm going to completely fill up these skulls just by pushing out the centre until we're completely full, hopefully, if I've judged this right. 1, and I need to move them slightly, actually. I've just realised that, so I'm going to do that in a second. And then 2. So before I get them completely full, I am just going to move them slightly, just so that they fit better in the curing machine. And do you know what? I might not have judged it right again. I think I will, though. I think that's okay. Let me just move them to one side, and I've got a tiny bit of this white left anyway. So this one I'm going to move across there, and then this one I'm going to move across here. There we go. And now I'm really going to scrape out these cups just to make sure they are full. And again, it's going on top of that layer that I've just put in there. And I want to finish off with the white. Let's get this gold. Here we go. And I think the more you do with your skulls, the cooler they end up looking. And I think I'm going to have lost all of that white in there. So these are going to be quite dark skulls, but I think it's fitting for a make like a Bloody Valentine or a Bleeding Valentine collaboration. Here we go. And I'm going to get this white, what's left. And you watch, this will be the only part of the white that you actually see. And just go around each one. And I think we're just going to be right once all is said and done. And they are looking so cool, guys. So cool. But I do want to make sure that they are completely full, which, surprisingly, I think I judged it about perfect, which was, I think, 500 ml of resin for these two. So there's a lot of resin going into this make, as well as a lot of time and a little bit of patience. Right, curing machine on, and then we'll be back for the next stage. See you in a sec. Right, well, let's demold these, and most importantly, let's demold this and see what we've got. So, again, pretty similar. You can see the white coming through, though, where I just dripped a little bit of white sinker. Didn't really have any particular effect, but it won't affect what I'm doing with these anyway. So, happy with these. They all look the same. I think they're pretty glittery, pretty dark, and they look a little bit like hearts. So, happy with that. That is the desired look that I wanted for these. There we go. And they all look pretty much the same. So I've now got 18 of these, which I can put in or around the piece, which is pretty cool. Then let's have a look at this, shall we? This is hopefully going to be the really cool piece, but I love how those skulls turned out in there. And hopefully I'm going to have a cool crystal effect heart. A little bit of overpour there, but that's okay. So let's sort that out first. Simply done. I'm really happy with that. Just get the rest of this overpour off it. Look at that, guys. So we've got a big crystal heart at the minute, which the idea is I want this section to stick out from the piece. and these heads can stick out that little bit further. But I like the way that looks. I think it turned out pretty much the way I hoped it would, with those skulls in there. And look at that crystal edge on it. Beautiful. So I want that to stick out. So this bit from here onwards, I pretty much want to stick out. So now is how I'm going to do that. So got to start figuring out how I'm going to put everything together in this big arch piece. But before I do that, we've got to demold those skulls. So here's the skulls that I made just for this piece. Hopefully they look similar. Look at this. See what I mean about it being a floating gold? And depending on how these have turned out is depending on A, whether I use them, or B, how the whole piece is going to look. So these are going to be a pretty big piece. So I'm just hoping that they've worked out the way that I wanted in a different... Oh, hello. So I'm not going to turn them around yet. I'm going to keep you in suspense. And then let's do this one as well. And I'm hoping they look pretty similar. No two pieces of resin will ever look the same, but I'm hoping we've got a bit of a similar look. We'll find out in a minute. Let's have a look. Oh, hello. Look at that. So cool. Really happy with that one. Here we go. So he's going to feature in the piece. And this one as well. Look at that. Beautiful. And that was just that candy apple red. This was slightly golder, but still looks really cool. So I think those definitely, this one's slightly redder. So maybe it's a his and hers. Who knows? So now I've got to start figuring out how I want this to look in this arch. And I want elements of it to stick out. And two bits are going to be these skulls. And I want them at a slight angle like this. And then I want the heart to stick out just a touch further, about there. So I'm just looking underneath now. And I need about a 1 centimetre gap. So I'm going to pull the first layer and then let it cure. Then that will give this something to rest on. But I'm going to leave the skulls in when I pour that first layer. So they're then going to be secured into that piece. And if I do it in layers, the good thing is, shouldn't bend this mould. And hopefully we shouldn't have a problem using standard 1-to-1. But just see the kind of look I'm going for here. Now, hopefully you're getting a bit of an idea of where my brain went when it came to this piece. And it's whether I want these hearts on the side or whether I use them as a back layer or whether I use them at all, for that matter. Let's have a look. See if we can get them in symmetrical. I don't want to block the view of the skulls though. And there's going to be another stage to this, remember? Now, I'm changing my mind about the next stage. I was going to use EcoPore, but these have turned out so cool, I don't think I want to. I think I want to leave it as a clear resin piece and then maybe do another piece at the top or the bottom for it to stand on. But I'm quite liking the way that this is looking right now without EcoPore, which is strange because I did think I was going to use EcoPore in it. Maybe not. We will see. So, right, next stage, I'm going to mix up some resin and just put that first layer in. But I need to decide whether I want these hearts going around the edge or not first. And I do think they're going to add something to the edge if I just put them in like that. So this is going to be elevated a little bit like that. And then we could even have a few in the back if we did this clear. Get a few more of these. So this could be a backdrop. Then the whole thing is going to be filled. And I do still want something here. So let's get the rest of them and just visualize what it's going to look like first. If I have these hearts as a bit of a backdrop, I quite like them. I think we're onto a winner, guys. And actually, by doing this, it's going to elevate that piece a little bit naturally as well. So I think I'm going to play around with that for a second. So I need to fill in a little layer. I'm going to play around with these hearts, get them the way I want them looking, and then we'll be right back. So here we go, guys. Next layer. And what I've decided to do is just mix up some different colours. I won't need too much. So I'm going to probably fill in these cups about a third of the way. And we're going to try and create an interesting crackly type effect for the background of this piece. And I'm going to use quite a few colours in it, just to see what happens. Don't know at this point. That should be enough. That one. But I'm just going to use a tiniest bit of all of these colours around the edge. I'm going to put a thin layer, and I want to save some for a bit of a push. So in we go with a thin layer, hopefully. And it doesn't have to be thick, this layer. And do you know what? The funny thing is, now I've done those hearts, that I'm kind of going against doing them. I don't know why, but I think they could make the piece look worse. And it's amazing how many times you change your mind when you do resin art. So I'm just moving this around the whole mold, hoping that there's going to be enough in there just to give it a thin layer on the base, to give us some kind of crackly effect, if there is going to be one. And I don't know at this point. This is going to be an interesting piece. I've never done anything quite like it before, which is always what I try and do, whether it's a collab, whether it's something else. Just like to have a bit of fun with it, an experiment, and find out what's going to happen. I don't know at this point. I'm guessing as much as you guys. And as I say, for me, that is the fun. It's just playing with your resin, seeing what it creates, hoping, I suppose, that it's going to create something beautiful. As you can see, that's a very thin layer. And in fact, I'm going to put just a touch more in certain areas where I don't think it's covered. And there we go. So I'm pretty confident that is now a nice thin layer. And I'm hoping I've got enough in there for the colours. Then I'm going to push it out with the rest of that clear. Then I'm going to put the skulls in at this point. That is the plan anyway. So, first colour. And I've already put my sticks in, which is a bit silly of me. Can you tell it's all not going to plan? So I best take those out, because that ain't going to work. And I'll get a new one. So this one's Copper Whisper, which I don't think I've used before. It's Create and Bloom colour. And it should just give us a whisper of copper. Look at that. It's like a bronzy copper. And again, it's not going to need a lot of this. So whatever's left on my stick there will certainly do. And that's the thing with these pigment pastes, guys. They go a long way. And I've actually put that in the wrong cup because I was going to use less of that. But there we go. The next one I'm going to use is a grey, which is Downpour. So that can go in this small one. Look at that. Very charcoaly and grey. I don't want too much of that because that could overtake everything. So that's probably going to be the first colour I pour as well, I think. Then we've got my favourite purple, which is Blackberry. Just getting a stick ready. And this is a beautiful purple. Really rich, deep and dark. And if you haven't noticed, I'm going for a bit of a dark theme here, but I'm hoping the crackle, if it does crackle, will give us enough light for some light to still come through the back and really make everything still pop, is the plan. Whether it works or not, your guess is as good as mine. So the next one I'm going to use Spider Silk. And I think this is going to be the last colour that I put in because it's quite a light colour. And it's going to be going on top of all of these dark colours. I'm hoping by doing it that way, we're still going to get a pretty cool effect. But I don't know. And this is just going to be a backdrop. This is just going to be the background, guys. But do you know what? Piece like this, take your time on it. I've taken the best, well, probably more time than I've spent on any other piece recently on this so far. But anything that's worth doing is worth doing well. And I thought it'd be great to do it as part of this collaboration. So this next one is Tahitian Pearl, which is a black, almost glittery one. Look at that. And that can go in there. And it's almost a semi-transparent, so I'm not as worried about that one taking over as the other one. So I think I'm going to go from darkest to lightest once I've mixed these. Just pouring it around the edge, then doing a bit of a push at the end. Then I'm going to put the skulls in. Then I'm going to let it cure, is the plan. So let's mix this one up first, which is that Copper Whisper. Look at that. Beautiful bronziness. Not quite as coppery as some of the others, but I really like that as a colour. So there's that one. The next one's probably going to be my first colour down, because I think it's going to be the darkest, which is this Downpour, which is a grey. Then I think we're going to go with the purple, which is the Blackberry. And again, this is just all playing, guys. I don't know if it's going to work. So if it doesn't, I'll apologise now. If it does give us a cool effect, then it was a masterpiece and it was always meant to be. Now, I'm not going to dirty pour this, I don't think, either. I think I'm just going to pour them in on top of each other and see what that creates. Now, I think this one's going to be the one before the Spider Silk. So, let's go for it. There's only one thing to do. Is that a hair, first of all? I think I can spot a hair. Yep,
I don't want a hair in there. Here today, gone tomorrow. Right. Move that to the side. Right. I think I'm going to start with the copper just because I think I'm changing my mind again. No, I'm going to start with the downpour. I'm going to try and just keep it around the edge. So, there we go. So that is our first colour around the side. Beautiful. Move that out of the way. And I've just spotted another hair. I've just gone and had my hair cut, guys, in between layers. So that's probably where these hairs are coming from. But I don't want them in my end piece. Right, they're gone. So that's that. Next, I'm going to go in with the Copper Whisper. And again, exactly the same. I'm just going to try and pour it on top of the other around the edge. Try not to get it on the sides. So that is that Copper Whisper. There we go. Next, I'm going to go in with the Blackberry, which is the purpley colour. And again, I'm just pouring them literally on top of each other until it's all in. And I don't know right now if it's going to create an effect or not. But we are going to find out because there's no going back after this. Next, I'm going to do the Tahitian Pearl. Just going all the way through it. And it's looking pretty cool already. And that's what I love about resin. Is you're not really the artist. The resin is. It does what it wants. And then finally, the lightest colour, which is that Spider Silk. And again, just going all the way around this edge. It's like a spider's web, this. Trying to keep it as even as I can. But it shouldn't really matter in a technique like this if it isn't completely even. There we go. I think that's all of that. Let's say we're not going to have much of a layer here either, guys. But it should just be enough to lift that heart up, I'm thinking, in the end piece. So now, I'm going to pour in the rest of the clear, which should hopefully push them back a little bit. And I am going to scrape this, because I don't want to waste any of this resin. And you should always be okay to scrape your sides, providing you've mixed your resin properly. Don't worry about it. Don't waste it, that's for sure. And I think this is about as much of the layer as I needed. We'll see when I put those skulls in. So there we go. That is that. Now let's grab the skulls, because that's the bit that I know that I want to go in. And I'm just literally going to place them the way that I want. So I think like that. And hopefully they're going to stay in position when the other one's in. And then this one like that. They will settle. And hopefully, I don't think they're going to float too much because of the sheer weight of them. I am going to push them down a little bit. And I think that's the way I want those. And then we're going to see what happens with that. So I'm going to put the curing machine on now. In fact, I've got a tiny bit of blackberry. I don't want to waste it. I'm going to put it in just over the edge again. Come on. Just to give us a bit of a purpley tinge. Hopefully around the whole piece. You know, but I don't want to get it on the skull either. So I'm just being a little bit gentle to get these last drops of blackberry in there as well. There we go. Happy with that. Now I'm going to cure this for 2 hours. And then we're going to come back and see what we've got. So I'm just literally doing that, making sure they're resting against the side so they shouldn't move. So put the lid on and I'll see you guys in 2 hours. Fingers crossed. Right, here we go, guys. That should now be cured and we're ready for the next stage. And it has created a bit of an interesting mishmash. And I'll be intrigued when we demold to see what the back looks like. But I like that. I think that looks good. Now I just want to grab the heart and position it where I think it's going to go. And hopefully, with the point being where it is, it's still soft enough to just press in there a little bit and secure it. I think that'll be enough. And then I've mixed up 400 ml of resin for the next bit. And I think I can just press it down enough to secure it in, which is fine. Oh, it's coming together. I love it when a plan starts to come together. So I can roughly see where that dot's made there, but I'm going to pour some resin in now. And again, I'm just using the standard high gloss from Apex. If you want any of that, get over to apexresin.co.uk. Use my discount code CCUK. Now this part's going to be interesting because I want to add a little bit of theatre to this. So I've got some chromatints, which are these pigments from Create & Bloom. And if you look what happens. Under UV light, they glow. Now, last time I did this with the deep pour, which is very UV resistant, and it didn't work. So I'm just using the high gloss here, so I'm hoping it will. And I'm not going to need a lot of this. So most of this is actually going to go straight in. Just want to get an even amount. There we go. And
And that's just going to be for red and blue. And you'll see what I'm going to do with that in a minute. And I'm only doing the rest of what's left of this 400ml straight in as the next layer. I'm trying to do it as slowly as possible to try and prevent any bubbles as much as possible. And I think this should just give us another couple of centimetres once it's all in. And this is the most I probably have ever risked in a pour like of this high gloss as well. So I'm hoping I don't get a flash cure. All right, let's scrape the remainder out as well. Then I'm going to give it a quick torch and then try and get rid of these bubbles. But I don't want to waste any of this resin. We're about halfway full now, which is pretty cool. And there is going to be, I think, at least one more layer, possibly two after this, depending on how I think it looks and how I think it's going to look demolded. So I'm just going to torch any of the surface bubbles off because I don't want any of those. And I can see there's a few stubborn ones just there. So I'm going to try and maneuver them up just using a silicone tool. These ones here. Up you come. Hopefully by maneuvering them up, it's going to encourage them to the surface. Then I can get them with the torch. Then we can move on to this next stage. So I'm pretty happy. Most of those bubbles have now gone. And I'm happy that there is a transparent piece there. And hopefully, if it all comes together, you'll see why at the end. So these chromatins, you've got to use a little bit more than what you'd normally use. I think 10 to 15% is what Lou said. And they are quite thick. Look at that. But look at the beauty of them. Look at that glow. So I'm going to put a good dollop, stirring it all around, making sure it's nicely mixed. And I do want this to stand out. So look at all that I've put in there, just for that tiny bit of resin. And it might be too much, but I want to be able to see it in the daytime, as well as if I'm shining a light on it. So let's mix it around in that resin. Look at that for a colour. Beautiful. And hopefully this is going to work, this idea. It might not, guys. First time I've tried it is now. But I wanted to. It's all part of the fun, part of this collab. Again, a good dollop. 10 to 15% is what should be going in. And I think that is enough. So this should be the blue and the red of the two colours that I went for. And there's a set of 12 of these, but I think these are the colours that I wanted. And I'm going to test it in this inconspicuous piece here, just in case anything goes wrong. All I'm going to do is use a toothpick and load it up with some of this chromatin and try not to do that. And then try and get it just in like that. And then I'm going to do the same. Now, it's not, I want it. There we go. And then I'm going to go like this. And hopefully you get the idea now. And if this works, I'm a genius. And if it doesn't, it's only resin. But I'm hoping these little streaks that I'm just putting in will come through to the final piece. And because I'm going into that resin and pulling it through, I'm hoping we're still going to see it in the end piece. But the main areas I want to get through are probably this top area, because that is what we're going to see the most. And I can't even see what I'm doing here, guys. It's so faint. Maybe I should have charged it first, like charging your phone. Here we go. And I want these all to come into that center. I'm trying not to put many bubbles in whilst I'm doing this, but don't forget, we are going to have another layer on top. I'm just trying to get little streaks coming through the resin into that center, right from the outside in, without leaving any big blobs. And I don't know if this is going to work or not, but it's something I just wanted to try before I put that heart in and let it cure. I don't think I need too much of this, but just enough to hopefully be able to tint this when I put a UV light on it. I just thought it was an extra effect. But if I'm being honest, I haven't really played with before. And I thought, what a perfect opportunity to try on one of my biggest pours. So let's just have a look now. If I put the torch on this, look at that. Hello. And now let's add some red. As you can see, you don't need a lot. A little bit goes a long way. So let's add some of this red now. And this is what you call going all out on a resin project. I'm hoping it's all going to work. There's no guarantees. There never is with resin. But I'm hoping that this is going to give us a really cool effect. And there is going to be another layer on this, which is what worries me, is that that could block out this pigment. Hoping it doesn't. And I'm hoping we keep this really cool effect going through the piece, hopefully, just to give us a really cool finish. And I think I'm about there. I don't think I want to risk too much more, because otherwise
we could have problems. Maybe a touch more of the blue. See, I don't like how that bit there settled. I think that was a bit of the powder, so I'm just going to wisp it around a bit. There we go. But so far, I think that's looking cool. I might put a few more blue bits in as well. And obviously, these are all probably going to move into that center anyway, so I'm going to focus this on here. And I don't want them to be perfectly straight either. I'm just going for it now. And then I'm going to have a look at what effect we've got and see if I think we're about there, which I'm hoping we are. And then I can just cure it with the heart in, and then we'll see what we've got. Right, where's my torch? I think we're about there, guys. Look at that. For an effect. So cool. And I'm hoping that will stay. Now the bit I'm really dreading, which is placing that heart. I'm going to press it ever so slightly into the resin and hope that that secures it in. But this is the look I'm going for now. Look at that. So cool. Right, I'm going to get this into a drip cup and then we're going to cure it. And then we'll come on for the next stage. This is a long project. I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying to speed it up for you guys. Do me a favor and subscribe to the channel. Doesn't cost you anything and it helps immensely. Here we go, guys, and I'm back. And if I'm being honest, a little bit disappointed because I forgot one of the basics of resin. It moves, especially if you put it in a curing machine. So all of those beautiful lines that I had in there, there's still some there, but most of them have pulled back in. So let that be a lesson. If you want it to stay put, it's got to be thicker. So luckily, I need another layer in this. I'm not completely happy at the minute. So I'm going to do exactly the same as we did yesterday. But this time, I'm going to leave the resin for about an hour before I actually do that. And hopefully, that'll keep those lines where I want them and give us that streaky, lightning, plasma-y effect that I wanted. So I've mixed up 300 ml, which should hopefully be enough for this final layer. And it should get me to the depth that I'm looking for. Should be in the operative word. And I wanted it up to almost that edge where you can see the crystal effect in the heart. So we're almost there now. And that is pretty much perfect. Because I did want it to stay sticking out, which it is. There we go. So now, there's a couple of bubbles in there, so I'm going to do some bubble maintenance. I'm going to scrape this cup as well in a minute. In fact, I might as well put whatever's left in these side pieces. And then, well, I might as well leave it for 10 minutes. Then I'm going to blowtorch it. Then I'm going to come back in an hour's time. And hopefully it should be a little bit thicker. I'm going to mix up these exact same colours. I'm going to do it now so that obviously they can be in the resin anyway. And then we're going to put those lines in again because I loved the way it looked. So that is what I want to replicate, but I want it to stay like that. And I don't think it'll have an adverse effect, what I've already done. Again, don't waste your resin, guys. Always scrape your cup. Even if you're using a dirty cup, just scrape it out. And that way you get every last drop of resin. So I'm going to leave this for a minute, torch it, come back in an hour. Once I've mixed those colours, I'll see you then. Then we'll put those streaks in. Hopefully, this will be the final layer. I'll see you in a sec. Here we go, guys, and I'm back, and it's been about an hour, and that's just given any bubbles a chance to get out, and it's given the resin a little bit of a chance to just thicken up a little bit, and I think that's what it needs. So we'll find out, but there's not many more chances left after this, so I really hope that this works. So let's grab another toothpick and do exactly the same as I did last time, which is go in with the blue first. Look, it is a lot thicker already. And I'm just hoping it's still going to give us that wispy effect. So again, loading up the toothpick and then just pulling it through the resin and pulling out the other end. And hopefully this is going to work. I'm praying here because I absolutely loved the effect last time. So again, just pulling it through, and it's definitely very different to the last time I did it. So I'm still hoping somehow I can get that wispy effect going in, and just pulling it through that resin should create it, hopefully. And I don't know, it's either going to work or it isn't, but it's something that I wasn't prepared to give up on because it looked so cool, and I just forgot about the resin moving. And it's still, hopefully, not cured enough that it's going to keep this in place, and it's still going to give any bubbles that I'm probably putting in right now a chance to move, but it's just going to re-emphasize these blue lines, which I really think look a little bit like plasma. Remember those electric plasma lights you used to get as a kid? That's what it resembled to me. And that's what I want it to look like, if I can. And then I'm not going to put this through the curing machine either this time round. I'm just going to leave it to cure naturally. So hopefully, again, it's eliminating that risk of these lines not staying where I put them. And it's the first time I've done this, guys. So if it doesn't work, at least I can say I've tried. And we will find out in this collaboration piece. But I'm pretty happy with what I'm doing. And hopefully it's going to work. So that's the blue. Now for some red. And I don't mind if these overlap a little bit. I think it'll look more natural if they do. So let's start here. And I don't know, guys. What do you think? If it doesn't work, I'm going to be gutted though, because I absolutely loved that effect. I'm trying not to get resin over everywhere as well. It's not the easiest technique because you want enough on the toothpick to be able to pull it through, but not too much that it drips. But it's getting there, I think. And it's just about timing, I think. I'm trying not to drip it in. And obviously when you're doing this, you are putting bubbles in. So there is that risk. But you know what? If I get that cool plasma effect that I got last time, then it'll be worth it, I think. It's worth the risk. Now, I'm just going to have a look with the torch and then decide if I want to go again. Look at this. Now, to me, it's a little bit too handmade at this point. So I'm going to go in the edges and wisp them together a little bit. Again, not all of them, but just some of them. I think it's going to give us more of a natural plasma-like effect. If I try and get some of this and just intermix them into each other. Again, trying to keep it even if I can. And just praying that it's going to keep this effect. Look at this, guys. I'm so happy I decided to go with this and ditch the hearts. What do you think? I think it's going to be awesome. So there's that. And then I'm going to do the same again with the red. And then I'm going to leave it because I think there's a risk I could carry on and go too far. Again, just pulling them through each other and hoping that this time I've timed it so they don't move too much. Let me know what you think. There is a risk here, of course, that it won't work and the resin will carry on moving, but I'm pretty happy with how it's looking at the minute. A little bit more blue on this side, and then with air. As I say, I don't want to interfere too much, and I want it to still stay looking, hopefully, reasonably natural. And whatever the resin does, it can do. Last one. And I think I'm happy with that. Let's see what it looks like under the light, and I'm going to try and clean. Got a few tiny bits of resin on the actual heart itself, so I'm going to try and clean that off just with a little cotton bud, or at least smooth it out so it's not as visible when it's done. In fact, I'm going to put a tiny bit of alcohol on there. I can worry about sorting this part after, but I might as well do it now, I think, whilst it's in mind. And then I think we're about there, guys. So I'm just going to torch it to get rid of any surface bubbles, and then we're going to see what it looks like. And hopefully this time we got it right, and hopefully this time it'll stay. We will see. So I'm going to switch the lights off because I think that's how we're going to see it best. 1, 2. And I'm going to get my other phone because I want a picture of this, just in case it does decide to move again. And then we're going to see what this looks like with the torch. And that will give us an idea, hopefully. Oh, hello. Look at that, guys. If that stays like that, I'm going to be so happy. Look at it. So cool. So that's it. I'm going to leave it now. Let it cure overnight, just as it is. As Sam, there's going to be a bit of cleanup, I think, on here. But that's okay, because I might just do a quick top layer afterwards. But look, it still glows without the light. Look at this. Get kind of a greeny glow. Look at that. So cool. Right. So I'll see you guys at demold. So here we go, guys. Finally, 4 days in the making, and hopefully this is ready to demold. So I hope you're as excited as I am. If you are, do me a favor, like and subscribe to the channel. Doesn't cost you anything, and consider joining membership, which gets you early access to all of my videos and really helps support the channel. Just got back from work, about to go on a live in about an hour's time, but I could not resist demolding this little beauty and seeing what we've got. And I'm hoping it's gonna look epic. Oh, it stands. That was the first worry, because those skulls were unlevel. And we're gonna see. You know, I'm glad I didn't put the hearts in, because for me, hearts can look a little bit tacky. But look at this, guys. So this is what you're going to see in the day. And I can see those flame results. Looks really cool. Those skulls, I think it's come out pretty much perfect, the way that I wanted it to. But not only that, guys, I want to show you something else. And for this, I'm going to switch the lights off, I think. Well, in the day, you're going to get that beautiful, almost plasma effect. Remember those plasma lamps we used to get as kids? Look at this, guys. Those plasma flames just in there in the day. And then what's really exciting, I'm really hoping this works. Last time I used these, it didn't work. So I'm praying at this point that it works. I'm sorry for the darkness, guys. But let's have a look. Let's give it a bit of a charge. And I'm just using a UV torch because there's not much sunlight at the minute. I live in the UK. It's winter. We don't get a lot of sun. So I'm hoping that this works and we get some green flames, which will naturally charge up in the sun and give us a glowing effect at night time with this beautiful skull piece. And the more I leave this to charge, the better. But hopefully this is going to work. Let me know. And don't forget, watch all of the videos in this collaboration. I think there's a bunch of amazing artists that are getting involved. And look at that! We have got glow-in-the-dark flames as well. So cool. I am really happy with how this project's turned out. Let me know what you think in comments. Share it around. You know, I think it's a really cool effect. This is going on my mantelpiece. Although I'm single, I can still make a piece to share with somebody for Valentine's Day. And all of you guys are my Valentines. So there we go. Cool piece. And I hope you've enjoyed it. And I'll see you on the next video. I'll get you some close-ups.